friends, welcome back from break. We are starting a whole new unit today in science, and we are going to study the history of Earth. So let me go ahead and just share up our screen real quick so we can see our slides. All right, here we go. This is called Our Home, Our Earth. This is the first lesson. So before we go through our lesson, let's actually look at our vocabulary words that we might come across that we may not know what they mean. So equator, the imaginary line around the center of the Earth, halfway between the North and South poles. Ella is from Ecuador, which is the country near the equator. So here is the equator, this line right here, and here's where we live. Okay, so we're not too far. We still have a little ways to go before we get to the equator. All right, our next word is geologist, someone who studies the history of Earth. A geologist spoke to the class about her studies in Hawaii. Geology, the scientific study of the history of the Earth. Jim reads books to learn more about geology. Pressure, the continuous force of one object on another. The nutcracker helped the girl create enough pressure to crack the walnut open. Surface, the topmost layer or outside of something. She wiped the surface of the table with a wet cloth after dinner. All right, so let's talk about where we're going today. So I'm actually gonna escape for a second and stop sharing, because we're talking about the history of the Earth, okay? So history refers to things that happened in the past, and Earth is where we live. So let me grab here we go, grabbing my globe here. So we're gonna talk about what the Earth is, and our Earth is like billions of years old, like really, really, really old, okay? And so we're gonna talk about all the fascinating things that they found that we learned about from our history of our Earth, okay? So let's look at our globe. This is a globe. It's round. It has all of our countries and continents on it. It shows you the oceans and the lands, okay? It's a model or a small copy of our Earth. To learn about things that are too big or too far away to study in the classroom. So we're going to use this globe to help us learn more about the Earth and where we live, okay? So now I'm going to share again. I still have my globe here though. All right, so we live in, like, my school right now where I'm at is in the town of Oliver Springs. You might be in the town of Norris, or you might be in the town of Clinton, or you might even be in the town of Lake City, or any of those places around here, okay? So we live in a town, and in that town is the state. So we live in the state of Tennessee. So your town, Clinton, Norris, Lake City, Riceville, all those places, Oliver Springs, okay, we all live in the state of Tennessee. So this whole entire thing is Tennessee. And we are right here. This little orange area, that's Anderson County. Okay, so but here we live in the state of Tennessee. And the Tennessee, our state of Tennessee, is in the country of the United States of America. And I'm gonna show you on the globe, here is the United States of America. Okay. Oops, wrong way. And the United States of America is on the continent of North America. So here's the continent of North America. And then North America is on the planet Earth. So here's our entire planet Earth. Now we can only see one side of the Earth at a time, but if I rotate it, you can see the other continents and other countries. See them? Go down here, look down. See? All right. So, all right. So even though it seems like we're on, the ground we stand on is flat and still, we actually live only on a tiny part of a huge sphere. So the sphere is a ball, like our globe, and we call it Earth, okay? Oop, too far, sorry. The Earth is covered by both land and water. I'll show you on our globe. See, Here you see the land. They're different colors on here, but in real life, it's not really different colors like this. But the land is also called continents. So here's our continent of Africa. Here's the continent of South America, continent of North America, the continent of Europe and Asia. Oh, hold on, guys.
Okay, we're having another door prize.
Sorry about that, guys. All right, then our sphere or our Earth is also covered in water, also known as oceans. So we have.
Mr. John.
All right, guys, sorry about that again. All right, so here's the ocean. This is the Pacific Ocean. And then we've got the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. So we've got lots of different oceans that cover the Earth also. Okay. All right, so we're going to learn today about a scientist, a very interesting scientist that knows a lot about our Earth, and he's going to talk to us, and we're going to figure out what we can learn today. So I need you to listen carefully, and here we go. Hello, kids. My name is Gary, and I'm a geologist. So we're going to call him Gary the geologist, and Gary and geologist start with the same letter, and that's known as an alliteration. A geologist is a type of scientist. A scientist studies and learns all of the world in which we live. Okay? Geologists are scientists who study rocks and what's inside the earth. That's right, rocks, from pebbles to stones to boulders, from a grain of sand to the highest mountain. Rocks are everywhere. And I want you to know all about rocks, from how they are created to how they are used in people's everyday lives. You use rocks in your life?
I cook with them.
Miss Nicholson said she cooks with rocks.
I don't.
I'm just kidding, guys. All right. Oh, look here. People used rocks to make jewels on this crown.
Pretty. Ooh la la.
People used rocks to make buildings, walls, and streets. A sculptor carved a big rock to make this sculpture of Abraham Lincoln. Geologists use rocks to learn about the earth. In the ancient Greek language, the word geo means earth and ology means the study of. When we combine these word parts, we have geology or just geology, which is the study of the earth. Okay, so geo means earth and ology means the study of. So when we put it together, it makes the study of the earth. Since the earth is mostly made of rock, we geologists spend most of our time studying rocks. Many of the rocks we see on the surface of the earth, from mountains down to pebbles, are created by incredible forces at work deep inside the earth. So the surface of the earth is outside the earth. We walk and live on the surface of the earth. Have you ever wondered what's inside the earth or under the surface where we walk on it? Thus, geologists study not only rocks, but also the forces at work inside the earth and on the earth's surface. We study the whole earth. Okay, so let's see. Maybe we can figure out what's inside the earth. Some scientists believe the history of the earth begins a little over 4.5 billion years ago. That is a very, very, very long time ago. Before that, some scientists believe the materials that now make up Earth were orbiting or floating around our newly formed sun as billions of little bits and pieces. Over many, many years, it is believed by some scientists that these floating bits and pieces gradually stuck together until they made up Earth, as well as its neighbor, the moon, and other planets. When it was newly formed, Earth was basically one big ball of hot, melted rocks. Over time, however, some of these materials cooled and hardened, allowing the planet Earth to become what it is today. Maybe you already know that Earth is a planet. Earth is one of 8 major planets that orbits the sun. So here, let's see, where is it? There it is. There's the Earth. It's the 3rd planet from the sun. Do you know the names of any other planets? I do. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Like the other planets in the solar system, Earth is trapped in the gravitational pull of the sun. This causes Earth to orbit or revolve around the sun. It takes 1 year or 365 days for Earth to complete an orbit around the sun. The Earth's orbit around the sun is not the only way Earth moves in space, however. This map shows the Earth's north and south poles. So here's north and here's your south. The north and south poles are imaginary points on the northernmost and southernmost parts of the Earth. The axis of rotation is like an imaginary line or stick going right through the Earth at the north and south poles. So here, let's look at our globe again. So our globe is kind of tilted, but you can see at the very bottom, there's your South Pole, and at the very top, there's your North Pole. And you can kind of pretend like this parts that are holding the globe on is the imaginary stick, and it just rotates on that stick. Well, where was I? There's not really a stick running through the Earth around it, which it turns. The axis is an imaginary line around which Earth rotates. The Earth rotates or spins in the same way that the globe spins on its axis. It takes 1 day or 24 hours for Earth to make a complete rotation. The map also shows the equator. So here's your equator, that line right there. The equator is an imaginary line around the middle of the Earth. The equator divides the Earth into 2 equal halves. The area along the equator receives the most direct sunlight and is therefore generally the warmest area on the surface of the Earth. Earth is sphere-shaped like a ball, and it is surrounded by a thick blanket of air called an atmosphere, where clouds float around. Most of the Earth's surface is covered with water in the form of the 5 oceans: the Pacific, the Atlantic, Indian, Arctic, and Southern, or the Antarctic. And between these oceans, there is land in the form of 7 continents: North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica. People haven't always known that the Earth is round or that it rotates on its axis, as well as orbits the sun. They haven't always known that there are 5 oceans and 7 continents, or that most of the surface is covered in water. It has taken hundreds of years for scientists and explorers to develop all the knowledge about the Earth that I just described in the last few minutes. But this barely begins to scratch the surface of what we now know about the history of the Earth. All right, let's see here. There are 3 important words you need to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about geology, which is the study of the Earth. Heat is the first. You can feel heat from flame or from the sun on a sunny day. Heat causes many changes to the Earth. The second word is pressure, like the force you use when you push on something. Pressure, or the force of weight, also causes many changes to the Earth. Time is the third important geology word to remember. To understand geology, you need to think about a time in a whole new way. Forget about minutes, hours, days. These amounts of time don't mean much in geology. Geologists think in terms of many, many years. It takes a long time for pressure and heat to do what they do. The Grand Canyon, located in Arizona, provides a lot of clues about the Earth's formation and history. It took millions of years for the rushing water in the river to carve through the rocks to make this canyon. No other place on Earth allows me to see and study so many different layers of rocks at the same time. The rock on the upper rim of the Grand Canyon is estimated by some scientists to be about 230 million years old, whereas the rock layers at the very bottom of the canyon are estimated to have formed over 2 billion years ago. That rock is half as old as the Earth is believed to be itself. Remember, heat, pressure, and time are the main factors of geology. If you understand those 3 words, and you are ready to move ahead and learn many things about the history of the Earth. All right, guys. So let's stop sharing real quick and let's get ready to discuss our questions.
Okay, guys, let's go over our questions before we begin. I had to go out in the hallway because I had to finish recording. We had some things going on in the room. So, shh, we're in the hallway. All right, so what does Gary, the geologist, study? He studies rocks and about the earth, right? The history of the earth. All right, how did people use rocks? They're important. Rocks are important because people use them to make jewelry, they make buildings, they use it in art, we use it in all kinds of things. Okay, so then what is the shape of the earth? Remember, I showed you the globe. What shape is that earth in? Said it kind of looks like a ball, but it's called a sphere. So what do we call the land and water that cover the earth's surfaces? We don't just call them land, do we? No, we call them continents. And we call the water oceans. Okay, so what is the equator? Remember, we talked about that equator. It's that imaginary line right around the middle of the earth that divides the earth into two equal halves, with the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And right around that line, it stays really warm. What are the three important words that Gary said that we need to remember when we think about geology? Heat, pressure, and time. Okay, so we got to remember those three things: heat, pressure, time, because those are going to be very important when we move through our next few lessons. So guys, you have some questions in your Google Classroom that you'll need to answer. If you don't know the answer, go back to the video and look again, because all the answers are going to be in the video. And we've just talked about all the questions we're going to talk about. Okay, so go fill in your answers, then submit it in to me, and I'll see you guys on our next lesson. Bye, friends.